Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Fighter Heart podcast. I'm Joe Rizzo, and I'm joined here with Sherown. Nice to meet you. Good to see you.
Nice to
Thanks for
meet you.
joining us.
My pleasure.
So we like to get into it right away here. Just start off by giving us a little bit of your background. Like where you're from, maybe, and a little bit of your upbringing. But then, get right into your Fighter Heart story, and then we'll take it from there.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm here in Denver, Colorado. Was born in Laramie, Wyoming. Athletic through college. Participated in track and field during college and did pretty well. I also tried cheerleading for a couple of years in college and then did the whole CrossFit thing after graduating. And currently still now in Colorado with two kids. But I think the big thing that most people usually end up catching at some point is being paralyzed in 2014. So that's kind of where the fighter heart story begins.
Okay, wonderful. Maybe yeah, give us like leading up to it. What was your life like, like 2013 leading into 2014?
It was kind of a mix. I was doing the average thing that I think a lot of people do. I was trying to move up at work, so I was finishing my master's degree in software engineering. I had just got married at that point in time, bought a new home. My kids were 1 and 3, so kind of pursuing that stereotypical lifestyle. I did have a younger sister pass away before that, due to suicide, just like months before. So it was a tough transition for my family, and there was a lot of other stuff going on. But other than that, nothing really, crazy or out of the norm.
Okay, so then it was it just did you have like an accident? Was it all at once? I guess it just happened.
Yeah, actually, right after we had lost my sister, I had finished my master's, and to just kind of get away and get a break, I went to San Diego to visit some friends and was just roughhousing with a friend, and he got me in a leg lock. Was squeezing, and I was pulling my head out, and my neck broke, causing a spinal cord injury and C4, C5, quadriplegic.
Jeez, so it can happen just like that. You've probably messed around so many times, right? Like so you were just wrestling basically.
Yeah, and I had done jujitsu and other random stuff before and cheerleading, tumbling. Like I've landed on my head, I've landed on my neck. I knew he wasn't on my arteries, so I knew I wasn't gonna, pass out. So I was still trying to escape, and the thought of my neck breaking never crossed my mind, and it was just one of those freak accidents.
Was there like a crack or like did you feel like a pop or something?
Yeah, it was like a crack or a pop, and then my body just went completely limp. So I couldn't tap out. Your lungs are compromised, so I couldn't tell anyone to stop or get help. But there were other people there, and so once they saw my body limp, they thought I was passed out from being choked out. And then after they flipped me over, they could tell I was coherent and I was awake, and I was gasping and trying to mouth that something was wrong.
Yeah, yeah. So you were conscious the whole time. It's you didn't lose consciousness.
No.
So do you remember like people just like call 911 or something like that? Or
At first that I had one friend who had some medical knowledge and was being careful. He flipped me over. He was like, "Can you feel your legs?" And I believe he was touching my legs at that point in time. And he was like, "What about your arm?" And he had asked if I wanted him to call the ambulance, and I was like, "Yeah, something's wrong." And then some other friends tried to get me up for a second. He was like, "No, leave him on the ground. If he's saying he can't move, keep him there." And then at that point, he had called 911. Fire department had showed up, uh, took all the C precaution, like for a neck break, and got me on a board, cut clothes off, that whole routine.
they threw you in, they got you right in the ambulance right away. Do you remember
Yeah.
being in the ambulance at all? Is it clear or blurry?
Yeah, I remember being in the ambulance and being kind of frustrated because one of the gentlemen from the fire department, I don't know if he thought I was joking or kidding or what the case was, and he was like, "Are you sure? Because if we could get you on this board, we're gonna take you to the hospital and you're going in the ambulance." I was like, "Yes, something is wrong. Like I can't move."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Yes,
What do
like
you mean? Like, are you
I
sure? Like, do you want to pay for this? Like, is he trying to say it's expensive to go to the hospital?
Yeah, I don't know if he thought friends were just roughhousing around and maybe overreacting or if there was something else to it, but I was
Wow.
like, this is something's wrong. Like I can't move. It's serious. And so I remember that portion and I remember getting to the hospital and then Once I was to the hospital, then they, start all the medications and that stuff. So then after the medications kicked in, I was out.
So what's the first thing you remember after waking up?
It was kind of spotty. I remember coming in and out of stuff. They didn't do surgery for a couple of days. And so I remember coming out of surgery and them telling me that they did an incision through the front of my neck and I glued it shut. And I remember just thinking that was weird because there's no stitches. They, cut your throat open, go in, do surgery, and then they just glue it. And so I remember thinking that was kind of weird, but I still didn't grasp the severity of what the injury was for quite some time. And in and out of, just like the medication kind of fog. It's probably a good week before I really started coming out of it and realizing what was going on and seeing friends and family members. Like some people visited and I can barely remember them stopping by.
Wow. So were you limp like from the neck down at this
Yeah,
point?
it was shoulders down, so I had triceps, so I could shrug, but other than that, I didn't have anything.
So let's say so at this point you're coming out of the medication fog like a week later, right? Do you remember the first conversation a doctor had with you at this point and like what they told you?
They were really careful at that hospital. I didn't get the terms of spinal cord injury and quadriplegic until I transferred to a different hospital. But my first conversations in the hospital were more about mental health, making sure that I was doing all right. Like no one was really telling me what was going on, which was kind of frustrating. And so they did have a doctor to, see how I was doing and, just mentally how you're holding up. They're trying to make sure that you're getting food down because I was dropping weight really quick. Most people don't know, but your internal intestines are paralyzed when that happens. So like everything comes to a stop, like your digestive system stops. So they're just trying to find ways to keep your body moving. So getting your bowels moving, trying to get food in your body, um, just different stuff like that was more of the concern.
Yeah, that's I had no idea that your stomach just stops working. How does your heart beat then? Like
It's the difference between like a voluntary and involuntary muscle. The contraction of the intestines is more of a smooth muscle. So like a lot of people that are paralyzed, we have like what's called a bout program that helps get things moving through your intestines. Your heart is an involuntary muscle, so that keeps beating and going on its own. Your lungs are compromised, so breathing can be difficult, speaking can be difficult. A lot of people injured at that level go on to a breathing tube or a trachea. Um, so
yeah.
it kind of depends.
So okay, so let's get on a timeline now. You got out of the you're out of the mental fog. Actually, you're switched actually now. You're at the new hospital, right? Where they told you that you're paraplegic pretty much, right? For life, they told you.
Or it was quadriplegic, but yeah, they try not to give anybody false hope or promises, which is understandable. Um, for me, a lot of the time was spent on just people learning how to care for me when I get home. So it was working on transfers, changing clothes, how to get me in and out of bed. That was primarily most of the therapy for the 3 months I was in there.
Are you still only moving your shoulders at this point?
Yeah, I started getting some right biceps. So I had one of those power chairs, and instead of having to do like a mouth assistive drive, I could use my right arm some to use like a joystick controller for my power chair. Left arm was completely absent. So luckily I had that right hand so I could drive the chair.
So they didn't really give you like, this is how it's going to be forever. They pretty much just wanted you to take it however you take it, basically.
Yeah, they try to work with whatever you have. So for me, it was very limited function. It was just working on like what you can do. Try to work towards being able to feed yourself. Hopefully, goals of getting home and being able to help someone get you dressed. Like a lot of it's based on caregivers and just life at home.
Do you remember what, thoughts were going? I'm sure you don't remember everything, but the thoughts going through your head at the time? Like, were you thinking, oh, my life's going to change and whatnot?
Once they started throwing around those terms, I knew it was changing drastically.
Yeah.
Uh, for better or worse, it was like this is life now, trying to work through acceptance, trying to picture what it was going to be like, trying to picture what it would be like attending, sporting events for my kids in a power chair, what I could, do, trying to make sure like mentally I was set, uh, focusing on food and nutrition because I was like, I'm not moving, I can't work out, I can't exercise, so I got to be careful about what I'm eating and
Hmm.
attention to just little details. I was an health nut before, so even after it happened, I'm like, what can I do to make this better or make it as easy as possible?
So you didn't lose hope. You were just like, I'm going to do whatever I can. This is all I can do, basically.
Yeah, and they said most of the time if people do recover something, it's they receive a majority of any types of changes within the first year or two. And so I promised myself like that first year, I'm just going to be fully dedicated to therapy and do everything that I can. And that was my mindset going into it. And luckily things started progressing during that first year. So I've stuck with it ever since.
Awesome, awesome. So you go home after how long finally?
Almost 4 months.
So 4 months, you get home, you're already kind of prepared, right? They've been telling you like, have the people ready for you at home to, help you out and whatnot, right? They were like getting you ready.
They do their best, but the transition home, at least for me, was still extremely tough because there's just so many things that you can't plan for and account for. And I ended up going into not a family member's home, but my ex-wife's parents' home, since that was going to be the easiest to get in and out of since they had a first floor bedroom. And so it was like, okay, well, we don't have shower modifications. I can't get in and out of certain rooms. There's just a lot of things that pop up once you get home. Same thing with just regular caregiving. Like you have to figure out adjustments through the night to try to relieve pressure sores. Like in the hospital, I was used to someone like literally coming into the room in the middle of the night and turning me every couple of hours to make sure you don't get pressure sores. So it's trying to figure out how to work through those things, trying to minimize my impact on family members, um, getting outpatient therapy set up.
Hmm.
Uh,
What was therapy like? What was the therapy process for you?
Inpatient, like I said, it was a lot more learning how to direct my care, explaining to people like what to do to get me in and out of stuff. Once I was outpatient or back home, I started an intensive therapy program that they would put me on a treadmill and manually move my legs for me and have me harnessed. And that was 5 days a week, about an hour and a half. And I was trying to do whatever I could on my own, but I mean, it was like full-time therapy and training, and you get exhausted pretty quick. It's pretty intense. So everything was get up, get ready, get to the hospital, do those workouts, get home, have dinner, and then just done for the night. And that was on repeat from April of that year, pretty much until December of that year. So the next 8 months.
So when you started the outpatient rehab, you still all you had was it all you were able to do was shrug and move your right bicep, basically.
Yeah, I started getting some twitching, like in fingers and toes. And then I was getting a lot of spasms, which are just involuntary, contractions. But then I started seeing myself being able to like trigger these spasms, which isn't great. Like it's not functional movement, but I could trigger a spasm and get like my arm into my lap or kick a leg straight. And so I was seeing that I could actually control some of these. And I mean, it's not enough to get you standing or walking, but even just to reposition yourself in a wheelchair or in bed, they were still meaningful movements for me. And after a while, I started being able to trigger them a bit easier. Then it started becoming functional movement. And with the therapy, I was seeing more muscles come back, and everything comes back extremely weak. So I wish there was like this lights on moment, but it's such a slow process. And something comes back, and then you're strengthening it, and then you're coordinating it, and then you're working on the next piece, and little
Yeah,
bit by little bit.
little by time, little at a time. Yeah. So you mentioned the rehab is very tiring. Uh, what is the rehab? So like if you don't have any feeling in your left arm, how do you start rehabbing it? Like do you pick it up and how does that work?
There's kind of different ideas around it. So for them, this was based on Christopher Reeve's foundation and a study program called the Neuro Recovery Network. And the idea is the high repetition movement is constantly sending those signals back and forth and trying to promote or encourage healing. And so it's just that high repetition of movement over and over again. And it is intensive. Like every time they're grabbing and touching you, it's sending signals to the brain. If you're trying to work with them, you're constantly sending signals to your body to try to move. So even if you're not visually seeing something move, it's those pathways that we're concerned about, like trying to send those pathways back and forth over and over.
But it doesn't actually hurt though, right? Because you don't have feeling in the arm, or it does hurt.
Pain is such a weird thing with spinal cord injuries because surface level, you can poke me with needles in certain areas and I feel nothing. But nerve pain is awful. So like you have like this burning nerve pain, you can have nerve pain that's almost like electrical. Like there's times where you just get an extremely sharp pain where you just want to like dig it out of your arm. It's bad enough and there's nothing you can really do about it. So you're dealing with nerve pain, joint pain, but yeah, surface level pain
Yeah.
isn't there. It's such a weird experience to go through.
Yeah, yeah. My brain was trying to figure it out. Like, how is it painful if you don't have any pain, if you can't feel anything? But that totally makes sense. It's
Yeah, it's weird how it works, and I wish I could explain it a bit better, but yeah, the sensory input of actually doing something to my body was still very numb, or I wouldn't feel anything, but laying in bed, I could be in pain all day just from the nerve pain.
Jeez. So 8 months of that, 8 months of outpatient, right? What progress did you see from in those 8 months?
By that point, I had started using a forearm walker. For whatever reason, like with my recovery, my legs started coming back better than my arms. So for me, using a manual wheelchair wasn't possible at that point, but I could use a forearm walker slowly and in small areas. So like it was challenging to get up into it, but if I was in a walker, then I could kind of shuffle around the house and do stuff. So then I started taking that outdoors and trying to walk a lap in a cul-de-sac. Next week, 2 laps, 4 weeks out, trying to get up and down the street. Like that started becoming my workout routine, is just building strength and endurance week after week.
Do you have any specific milestones in your head where you're like, yeah, like that was a big day for me.
Uh, Finding out I could get in and out of a vehicle. When you're a quadriplegic and you're relying on these big, massive power chairs, we didn't have an adaptive vehicle at that point. And then also, if family members were taking me anywhere, I had to rely on public transportation because no one could get this massive power chair in and out of a vehicle. And so once I could actually get in and out of a regular car and have someone get like a regular manual chair, um, then we would be able to actually go to stores and someone could like push me in the chair. I could do a lot more and actually rely on family. So that was a big milestone. There were a couple of family members that could lift me in and out of a car, but it was very few. So someone that was helping like my grandmother drive me to and from the hospital or my mom, they just couldn't get me in and out of a car. So that was a big one. And then of course, just being able to get up in the forearm walker by myself, because then it turned into me trying to stand all the time by myself. Then it was me trying to get to the kitchen by myself. And uh, yeah, I'm kind of driven. So it's like once I find out I can do something, I want to do it a little bit more.
So you didn't lose that at all. You kept
No,
that. Very cool. So where are you at today? What's the full progress report up to now?
currently I still rely on forearm crutches outside of the house. My walking isn't great, like I'm still stiff, but I can get in and out of stores, I can go up and down stairs. In the house, I primarily rely on walls and rails and everything, so my walls are all marked up. But I mean, just being able to come home and like stand and walk around is entirely different than having to rely on a chair in the home. And
So you can independently just go by yourself to the store? All good?
yes,
Beautiful.
yes. Now I'm living independently. I had divorced like a year and a half to 2 years after my accident. And then my kids are 11 and 13 now. So a lot of my time and efforts just maintaining a home. Like I do everything a bit slower in most tasks that people take for granted. That's my daily living, is just making sure I don't need a caregiver or someone to take care of these things for me.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, it's a lot of people have a problem slowing down. So, you probably don't take anything for granted, like any small movement at all.
No, like not this past summer, but the summer before, I found out I could actually use an electric lawnmower that had power assist to mow the lawn. So up until that point, I was always having to have someone help with the yard and just being able to mow the lawn. It takes me like 2 to 3 hours. So it's an activity and another person might take 20 minutes, but for me it's enjoyable, it gives me purpose, gives me something to do, and it's another accomplishment and something that I can do for myself.
Very cool, very cool. So what do you do, like work? Do you work at all? What's your current situation with that?
I've been in and out of work. I had a tech job before my injury. My typing is not very great, and then tech moves pretty fast. So I had a short-lived DevOps position, and then now I'm actually trying to get into more spinal cord injury research. Sadly, I have 10 years of experience with a spinal cord injury, so that's more valuable now at this point than my tech job 10 years ago. And
Yeah,
yeah, so now it's advisory boards, trying to do some type of consulting around spinal cord injuries and help others.
very cool. What's your like day in the life? Waking up, you wake up at what time and what do you do? What's your average day?
I get up at 5, get ready, go to the gym. I don't take any medication, so that kind of helps me with my spasms and pain management. That can go anywhere from, an hour to 2 hours. Come home. If the kids are home, it's, groceries, breakfast, clean the kitchen, stretching. If I have anything to do on the computer, emails, getting that done, lunch, cleaning.
It's like you have more hours in the day than because you're doing the same thing most people do, but it takes you longer. So it's like it's hard to how do you get squeeze it all in.
Yeah, it's like sometimes I look up and it's like I'm already cleaning the kitchen again, or it's like I start laundry and another hour or 2 hours has passed. So it's like pretty much it's going all day. It's just to maintain like a level of care and living. And then by the end of the day, I might get in an hour of TV or something and go to
Pass
bed. And,
out.
yeah, repeat it again.
Yeah, yeah. So, what do you have any like expectations or hopes of where your recovery will go? Like you were still rehabbing, right? I assume.
I do still go to PT and I'm getting like massage therapy and stuff like that and trying to improve what I can. It's always kind of a balance of being grateful for where I am because I wasn't supposed to have made it this far. But I've also have had, 10 years with this injury. A lot of complications come up and have come up over the years. And then now I'm into my 40s. So then just the process of aging as well complicates things. So I'm happy where I am. I'm going to try to get as much as I can out of it, but at some point I know it's definitely going to be maintenance and trying to slow any downhill speed that comes.
What's the next big goal?
Um, Last year I made a big push to try to do more walking like without my crutches. I was able to get around my park once. Something that would have been a 5-10 minute walk around a park for someone took me like 40 minutes. It's like tightrope walking.
Yeah.
Everything's very careful, making sure I'm clearing my steps. And I thought I would get more improvement than I would out of it, but my endurance got better. I still wasn't able to get past not needing the crutches. So um, maybe some more walking this year, trying to keep my endurance up. Just enjoying the outdoors a bit more this year because I haven't done as much like with my kids and up in the mountains and hiking as I've wanted to. But when they're young, their patience isn't as great. But now, hopefully, that they're getting a little bit older and they understand a bit more, we can enjoy some time and they'll slow down for me.
Yes, I think that's very important. So actually, I want to go back real quick. So you said you get like tired, right? Just walking around the park one lap, 5 to 10 minute walk, usually, that got you real tired, right? So are you like dripping sweat or is it like you're out of breath? Is it both? Is it like played a lot of basketball, big basketball game? Like what kind of tiring is it?
Usually it's out of breath and more exhaustion. With the spinal cord injury too, your temperature control gets thrown off. So I don't sweat a lot. So there are times where I'm walking, or if it's getting hot in the day, I have to either sit down or cool off because otherwise I'll start overheating and then you can pass out or have what they call AD or autonomic dysreflexia.
Has
Um,
that happened before?
Usually I catch the onsets. So like your vision can start getting tunnel vision, hearing can start going out. You
Oh,
get goosebumps, lightheaded. So if I start seeing those things happening, I'm either in the shade or getting home or sitting down or trying to troubleshoot what's going on. Because
yeah.
when that happens, you don't always know what's going on. So I mean, I could have a rock in my shoe and not feel it, and my body's interpreting that pain, and I'm not feeling it, and I might start going into AD. So it's
Gotta be
you have to do
careful.
everything a little carefully.
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, I get exhausted. It's like going for a jog or a run. Like I'm not dripping sweat, but it feels like you're hiking at altitude pretty much.
Yeah. Geez, and you're in Colorado, so you're already up there.
Yeah.
Wow. So, I guess we're all caught up. We're modern now. We know what your plans are. Let's say we're getting towards the end here. It's already 11, but let's say someone similar situation, someone was, messing around and, their spinal cord broke as well, and they're just suddenly into this world of where they're quadriplegic. What's some advice you would give?
Definitely have patience, with yourself and those around you. It's a tough thing. Like it takes a toll on the individual, but it also takes a toll on family members and other people around you. And changes are possible in some cases. It's not ever fast from what I've seen. And so it's just being patient with yourself and then also try not to have expectations. I think sometimes people get injured and it's always this goal of I'm going to walk again or I'm going to do this again or that again. And if you don't reach those milestones, then it can get depressing and hard mentally and emotionally. And I can say 100% now, like there's a lot of times where I'm still using a wheelchair and I honestly should be using one now just because it's quicker and easier. And I don't have a wheelchair. So it's like, being up and walking, there's advantages to it, but there's a lot of things where you have to think long term, taking care of your body, taking care of your health, and what's, honestly best for you.
Very cool, man. Thank you so much, Sherown, for coming on the Fighter Art podcast.
Thanks for inviting me, man.
All right, everyone. Thank you again for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Fighter Heart podcast. Have a great day, everyone.